kind of have this down to a science now. I'm actually going to be moving this stuff to my YouTube channel, come January. That's when we actually go, major league here. We're going to kind of go roll off the Zoom platform and going to do something, probably StreamYard or something, so we can get more people involved. In fact, we're going to test that probably the last meeting of the month to make sure that it's working out. So welcome everyone. Thanks for attending today. As a reminder, feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat. We have Chip Hartman today who's going to be talking about value proposition. Just as a heads up, he told me, I'm sure I'll tell you again, his voice is a little bit low today. I'm going to help him out if need be with some of the conversations and saving questions until the end if possible. So Chip, whenever you're ready, feel free to get the meeting going. Thanks a lot everyone for attending, and any questions, we'll take them at the end.
Okay, Ken, thank you. Let me just make sure I've got my one participant can share at a time, multiple participants.
Can everyone sort of hear Chip? I
want to make sure I've got the share screen thing. It's just, which option, Ken? Is it advanced sharing options?
No, if you go under share screen at the bottom and you select the share screen, you should have all different windows open.
Gotcha.
And then you can find the window that's open there with your press. Right, exactly. Got it?
We're good. We're rolling.
Cool.
Well, thank you, Ken, for the introduction. I'll reintroduce myself quickly because I know that there's quite a few people in the group that do not know me. My name is Chip Hartman. I'm a writer, a marketing consultant. I've been focusing on something called the value proposition for about 11 years. And I believe it has tremendous value, not only in the world of business where it comes from, but if you superimpose it on the world of the job seeker, you see that the overlap is actually stunning. Job seekers can benefit from adopting a business model attitude toward marketing. And the value proposition, as I hope to show you today, is really the precursor to all of the marketing you'll ever do. That includes your resume, your LinkedIn profile, anything that you come up with that can be classified as marketing yourself, positioning yourself. It all really comes from an understanding of this four-part structure called a value proposition. What it really does, I'm sorry, before I continue, just another quick thing of introduction. My background is in chemistry, and I'm a little slanted toward the sciences, but I'm also a classical pianist, so I get the science and the art world the benefit of understanding both, and I try to bring that into these sessions. You'll see some examples of that. One of the things that marketers, and I'm including all of us in that term, need to do is to understand how do people make decisions, because essentially we all want to be chosen for something. Now, we can want to be chosen for a job, but we also want to get a yes for an interview. We want to get a yes for a return phone call, things like that. So there is a company in Florida called MEC Labs, MECLABS, that has made a science out of studying why do people say yes. And from what they've discovered, it all stems back to this notion that was first brought up in the early 1900s called value. And it was polished in the 1980s by a guy named Michael Lanning, who called it the value proposition. And basically, people make, I don't know whether you know this, it's never been a need to know something as trivial as this, but in the course of a day, we typically make somewhere around 35,000 decisions. And when we're making these decisions, we're not always making them, with conscious thought. A lot of times our brains process the decision in milliseconds, but this is one of the things that is going on. We are essentially measuring, when we have to make a decision, we're measuring the value of something pitted against its cost. We are constantly weighing value against cost. Value, you don't need me to tell you what value is. You know what value is. Cost, we have to be careful on because it's not just money. Cost can be things like stress, anxiety, waiting too long, being irritable or being a source of the irritation. There's lots and lots of dimensions to cost. So what I want to do is, if I can step through this, I'm going to be skipping around on a very old slide deck. Hiring managers have a tough time. They have to make decisions. They have to say yes to somebody, and they have to say no to others. That's their job. That's what they're getting paid for. So they need to understand what value somebody brings as opposed to what their cost is. In other words, our dilemma as job seekers, you might think of as a herd of zebras like this. And it's very hard for a hiring manager to look at a pack of zebras and say, okay, which one of these is going to deliver the value that my company needs? So our job, our mighty task is to go from this somehow to this. We have to be able to emerge as, we have to be perceived as having the value that outweighs the cost. I want to spend just a minute helping you to grasp something that I think ends up being extraordinarily important. If I use the word conversion in a business sense, I think we all know that.
Echo, turn on the desk.
I think we all know that that refers to a yes, an acceptance, a purchase. But what I want to do is to explore what comes up before people say yes. What are the little micro sequences up here that lead somebody to decide to purchase, to hire? What do job seekers need to do up in this area? I'm using Niagara Falls as my example here because of the falls. The actual falls I'm calling, that's the conversion. That's the getting the yes, that's getting the acceptance. What we have to do is understand this. This is what, and it's all graphical today, really. A lot of the slides are really going to tell the story, not so much me. Before you can market yourself, there has to be at least some element of a brand. I don't want to get into branding today. It's a little complicated, but before you can even get into branding, you have to be able to position yourself so that you very clearly communicate value to a hiring manager, a decision maker, and it has to be value in their eyes, not necessarily what you think your value is. It has, and this is the hard part, it has to be value as they perceive value. And that is extraordinarily difficult to do. So there is a branch of marketing which gets into science. They actually measure how people make decisions and why people say yes. In fact, we can look at a simple example right here. It's a lady in a grocery store. I think she's in the dairy section. She's looking at a product. She's reading the label. And what is going to prompt this woman to select this product? In this frame, we see that in her mind, she's gauging a whole bunch of different factors. I'm just making these up. There's probably lots more. There's price, nutritional value, there's convenience. Is it safe? What about the packaging, serving size? All of these are practical aspects as a savvy shopper, and probably as a mom, let's say. She wants to know the answer to these things. So one of two things is going to happen. As she weighs the value of the product against its cost, she's either going to decide that those attributes, those value attributes, either tip to the positive side, which of course is value and makes the product worthwhile to purchase, or maybe there's too many negative things. Maybe the cost is too high. Maybe the packaging is pretty weak and shaky looking. Maybe there's not enough nutritional value. There's any number of things that could deter her from making that purchase. It turns out that the value proposition of a product or a service or a person is the fundamental reason why that product, person, or service gets chosen. And now we get into the philosophy of it a little bit. This is from a company called Mech Labs in Florida. They are pioneers in marketing science. They measure everything. They conduct thousands of experiments on why people say yes and why they say no. The way they view it is this: the essence of marketing is the message. I think we've all heard that before, but we may not have heard the second statement. The essence of the message is the value proposition. Today, what I want to step you through is a very careful dissection of what a value proposition is, and also what it isn't, because it's very easy to get it mixed up with other things. A value proposition is really the answer to the following question. If I am your ideal prospect or customer or hiring manager, why should I buy from you rather than any of your competitors? And you gotta let that sink in for a minute. Now, there's some spin-offs of that. For example, if I want to attend a prestigious college, why should I choose Harvard instead of the other Ivy League colleges? Or maybe this one, let's say I have $40,000 to invest. Why should I pick this mutual fund instead of another mutual fund? What is there about this one that gives it extra value? That's how you're going to gauge your decision to buy or not. Whatever the answer is, it's a because answer. Whatever your answer is, it's because you can state X, Y, and Z about you or the offer, which somehow encourages the prospect to look favorably upon the offer. And whatever the answer is, it has to do two things. It has to convey appeal. In other words, the benefits that the decision maker can easily see that align with his or her wants. And it addresses the age-old question, what's in it for me? That's appeal. And it also has to do this, which is much, much harder for a marketer to achieve. It has to give them some reason why they should choose you as opposed to somebody else doing the same basic kind of thing. In other words, there has to be some dimension of exclusivity. That is very hard to pin down. That's why a lot of people shy away from developing value propositions, because they don't believe that they are exclusive or have some nature of exclusivity. But it does answer the question, why should I buy from you? Why should I hire you? I want to get into the structure of the value proposition. This is, I guess, a lot of times when you have presentations like this, sometimes the presenter has to stand back and say, you know something, I hate to do this, but I have to teach you something for a few minutes. Just hang on and let me step you through this. There is a structure to a value proposition. I hope you grab this. I've broken it down into its 4 pieces. Any value proposition always answers the question, what is it that you do? What do you do? And you might think, well, gee, that's kind of stupid. Of course, I'm an IT consultant. I'm a pharma sales representative or whatever it is you do. But you have to be able to state it with extreme clarity so that if you were to say it to your grandmother in a nursing home, and if she didn't know what you did, and you had to go to a 96-year-old woman and say, hey, grandma, I'm a such and such, that she could understand it. She's got the clarity of knowing what it is that you do before you go another step. The second piece of a value proposition is that you have to know who your customers are. You have to know who your target market is. Without that target market, you're really marketing in the dark, aren't you? And that's not going to get you anywhere. So you have to have sort of like a segment of the market that you know you are a good fit for, and they're a good fit for you. The third piece is what benefits do you offer? This is benefits from their point of view, not yours. These are the solutions you bring to your hiring manager, decision maker, that are very clearly articulated as solutions, answers to their pain points. And then finally, what makes you distinctive? What separates you from the crowd? Before I go any further, I should tell you that this slide deck will be available to everybody. There's a link at the end, which we'll figure out a way to get the link disseminated to the group, and you can download these slides. There's really no need to take notes unless you want to, but that's totally up to you. Up until now, are there any questions? But we have to keep the questions short. Is everybody on board so
You can
far?
put them in the chat if you have questions. That would probably be easier.
Yeah. Thank you, Ken.
Sure. And if there's no one has any questions, we'll keep going.
Okay, good. If you articulate your value proposition properly, then it becomes your core marketing message. This is the marketing message you're going to disseminate everywhere. In your resume and your LinkedIn profile, anything that could conceivably be considered marketing in moving you through your job search sequence, your value proposition has got to be there somewhere. And it needs to be up front, by the way. I made some examples. These are hypothetical examples. Bear with me. I did the best I could. Here's example number 1 is a job seeker. He's a web developer. And this is his statement. I am a corporate web developer for businesses that need e-commerce functionality with advanced security features and ease of use. I hold 3 patents for voice-activated transactions. Now let's see why that is a value proposition. Here's what I did. I took it apart, I dissected it, and I rewrote it. First part, what is it that you do? I'm a corporate web developer. Maybe that doesn't pass the grandmother test. I don't know, but it's pretty good. I'm a corporate web developer. Who are your customers? Here's what he said: for businesses that need e-commerce functionality. So his target market are going to be those businesses that really require e-commerce. and a solid e-commerce platform on which to run their business. Let's take a look at the third piece. What benefits does he offer? Well, he said in his statement, with advanced security features and ease of use. And I'll bet you a dollar that he probably found that out by doing some research on the company. And he said, oh, they need it, and I do it. So this is a match made in heaven. This is good. This is good stuff. He's addressing their pain points. These are the solutions he brings. And then finally, I hold 3 patents for voice-activated transactions. Now, I got to be honest with you, I don't know what a voice-activated transaction is. I just made that up. There might actually be something, but it sounded good, and it's only for illustration. I figured you wouldn't mind. So there you have, structurally anyway, a value proposition. All 4 pieces are there. I could show you another example. I don't know if you want to take the time to go through it. We can if you want. We don't need to. You probably got the message from that first example. But this is a graphics designer, and we do the same thing and break it out. The reason I'm speeding up a little bit is that I want to get to what I think is a really important example of a value proposition, which it meets the 4-part structure that we think of when we write these value propositions. And there's some other very intelligent things that it does. And this is a LinkedIn profile that my friend Alex Freund and I worked on. Alex, I'm not sure how long ago, 2, maybe 3 years ago. But Alex wanted to get a better LinkedIn profile. And I had made the suggestion, let's build you a value proposition. What more could you want in a LinkedIn profile than a compelling, eye-catching value proposition? So this is Alex's. I'm using it with his permission. It is one of the better value propositions that I've ever developed. And of course, I had Alex coaching me as I was coaching him. I'm a career coach, and my specialty is interview preparation. Step 1, done. Step 2, who are your customers? My clients are 90% job seekers in transition and 10% those who are considering a career change. You let the reader know who this is aimed at. Step 3, what benefits do you offer? Now, you can read the bulleted list. You don't need me to read the list, and I'd like to save my voice. So, but there are the benefits that Alex itemizes, which people can expect to receive as a result of engaging with him. And then finally, what makes you distinctive? And here's where we had some fun with Alex, because Alex has got some things going for him that you don't find on too many other LinkedIn profiles for people who do interview preparation. Maybe the first one, there might be some overlap, but he does have 10 years of experience and over 600 clients. And look at this third bullet. Clients get immediate access to a network of 25,000 level 1 LinkedIn connections. Kapow. I mean, I don't know too many other people that offer that. They also get a free 90-page directory of job search networking groups. And Alex just also casually tosses in that he's bilingual and offers unlimited email and phone support. Alex and I agreed when we finished this that this satisfied the requirements of a value proposition because of its structure. I think Alex may have improved it since this time, a few years ago. But this, again, this is the structure of a value proposition. Just the structure, there's more coming, but it might be wise for me to if you have any questions in the chat box that I could answer just on the structure piece, I'll be happy to address them. I'll move on.
Yeah, I'll keep track of it.
Thank you, Ken. Now, let's look at the mistake. In a way, I don't like to do this, but I feel obligated to do it. Let's look at the mistake that too many people make in writing their LinkedIn profiles. Here's these totally fictitious people here. Jennifer Jones. I don't know. Anyway, Jennifer's LinkedIn profile. If you read that, and I hope you can read it, hope it's large enough on your screen that you can read it. If you read what she wrote there, it's just a lot of gobbledygook. It doesn't really say anything substantive. It does not provide anything in the way of discrete benefits. And she doesn't even identify who she's writing it for. It's filled with gobbledygook. It's what they call company logic, the way most companies typically talk about themselves. And it doesn't work. It doesn't connect. And here's her downfall. She's using these phrases. We got to get these phrases out of our jargon and out of our lingo. You can scan the list there. You see them. You don't need me to read them. Too much without conveying anything of substance. Here's the flip side of that, and this is called customer logic. People who write with customer logic are specific. They use what I call evidentials. They use metrics. They use numbers. They're not afraid to use numbers. They're not afraid of a percentage. They're not afraid of a time frame because they can back it up if anybody puts them into a corner. They can back it up. They wouldn't write it if they couldn't. It'd be foolish to do that. But if you read Samantha's LinkedIn profile, she has written a value proposition. It fits the 4 components structurally. It articulates the benefits, and she's got some differentiators in there at the end too. It expresses clarity, credibility, appeal, and exclusivity. That's why she got the smiley face, by the way. And again, if you really want some values that you can hang your hat on, here's a good list, starting list anyway. Generating revenue, saving time, saving money, decreasing costs, blah, blah, blah. These are the things that matter. These are the things that if you address them, people will pay attention to what you have to say.
Chip, we have a question.
Yes.
Based on metrics and statistics, do they ever get too old to be used and or quoted? Is there like a shelf life for some of this?
There may in fact be, and so you would have to exercise some real caution in what you decide to state as a metric or a measurement or an evidential. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Thanks.
All right. Company logic never works, but 99.7% of people on LinkedIn use it. It's terrible. Customer logic is only used by a fraction of people on LinkedIn. And they wonder why they're not getting the results. They scratch their heads and say, I've had that profile up for months and I'm not getting any calls. Or maybe you need to look at what you've written and whether or not you've looked at it from the customer's point of view instead of your own. You got to get out of your own skin and climb inside the mind of your customer. Alex Freund, if he accomplished nothing else a few years ago, succeeded in that department. And initially he had trouble. Alex, I hope you don't mind me saying that, but he recovered beautifully. And he learned how to get inside the mind of his customer, and he produced a masterful LinkedIn profile. The value you offer has got to outweigh the cost of hiring you, if, in a very practical sense. That's really what it comes down to. If you can't deliver the goods, why would you expect to get paid? We come on this near the end here. There are 4 things that you have to be thinking about in writing a value proposition. Not the 4 pieces. These are the qualities that the decision maker has got to be able to say, yep, he passes the test, or she passes the test on this, 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 and this. And those 4 things are clarity, credibility, appeal, and exclusivity. Got to be able to nail them all. If you're looking at this and saying, well, gee, Chip, I can get the first 3, but I'm not sure I can get that number 4. That's going to be tough to get. And I'd say to you, you have some work to do. You have to find that element of exclusivity. You have to dig for it. Clarity, well, simple illustrations here to make the point. You know, what you say may not necessarily be interpreted by the person listening to mean the same thing. And so clarity is critical. Credibility, if they can't believe what you're writing, why should they? I mean, if what you're writing sounds ambiguous or unclear, or gee, he really sounds like he's stretching the truth here, you may take a hit on the credibility scale, which goes basically, I call it from bogus up to trusted. And you know where we all want to be. Appeal. Your decision makers got to want what you offer. Notice I'm not saying need, I'm saying want. Because the scientists at Mech Labs have shown that people will always respond if they want something much more than if they need something. It's an interesting little point, but it ends up being important for us. Exclusivity. Here's a golf pro in Denver who was trying to figure out what could he write. Now, I don't think he did the greatest job in the world, but I give him credit for making a stab at it. In the 4th part of his value proposition, he says, I'm the only local golf pro offering swing cams to reveal and analyze defects. All right, so he gets kudos for that. And he's the only PGA licensed golf pro in the Denver area who is also a certified EMT. A lot of people would say, I don't get it. What's the benefit? It turns out that this particular guy set up shop in a part of Denver where there's a big population of senior citizens. And he actually got calls because he billed himself as a certified EMT. He conjoined those differentiators. He put this and this, or this and, oh, by the way, this. It was impressive enough to help build his business. And here it is in summary, going from bottom to top. Your decision makers got to understand your offer. That's the clarity piece. They have to believe your offer. That's the credibility piece. They have to want what you offer. That's the appeal piece. And they can't find it anywhere else. And that's the exclusivity piece. Just for a minute, deployment. If you're going to build a value proposition and go through all the work of creating one, if you don't deploy it, why did you bother? So once it's built, you got to get it out there in the spoken word. You got to get it out there in print. You got to get it online. And most importantly, right here, the LinkedIn profile. In my view, LinkedIn profiles should only be, and nothing else, your value proposition. I'm editorializing, maybe I shouldn't be, but to me, a LinkedIn profile should be your value proposition and nothing else. If you deploy it properly, you deliver a consistent marketing message, and that's the goal of most marketers, to be consistent. The conclusion is this. You're in a situation in looking for work, looking for a job. If your value force in her eyes, if your value force exceeds the cost force, remember, it's not just money, then let's do business. However, if the cost force exceeds the value force in her mind, I'm ignoring you, walking away. It's just the sad state of affairs. People need to find the best people for their positions. And if you're going to communicate at all with the decision maker, please try to do it by using a value proposition. You'll have their attention beyond anything else you could possibly offer. It'll be music to their ears. That's what you want to be. A value proposition can get you there. Q&A. And let me just, that's me. That's about Mech Labs. Some links that might be helpful. And the link to the presentation is the last slide. It's http www.chiphartman.com/VP/value proposition. Ken, I'm sure we can figure out a way to get that link.
Oh yeah, I'll send a link out to everyone, off the meetup group as well.
Okay.
Thank you guys very, very much. What I'm going to do is if you want to unmute yourselves, we'll try it that way and ask questions that way. I'm happy to field them, or if you're comfortable, put them in the chat. And if we don't have any questions, I'll ask.
And Chip, I have a question to ask you. First of all, I enjoyed very much your presentation. I also feel very honored that you brought my case to talk about. And I thank you for working with me. How many years ago? Many years ago, you worked with me on this.
2 or 3, Alex. I can't remember which.
Yeah, but anyhow, the value proposition is great in writing, LinkedIn, cover letter, etc. But let's say you are in a networking event and you have to stand up and give your elevator pitch. Now, if I were to stand up and talk for about 5 minutes about all the stuff, people will say, stop, sit down. So no, seriously, how do you encapsulate this into like 30 seconds to a minute?
There's no easy answer for that, Alex, but what you have to do is you begin with a value proposition that you've already composed. And from that, you distill it down into a conversational analog to the value proposition, to the written 4 steps. You take those 4 steps and using your very best writing skills, you write out a little conversational script that captures the essence of that message, but doesn't elaborate excessively. And you have to get a little creative. You have to have like what they call a hook at the beginning of your elevator pitch. You have to draw people in. There's no easy answer. There's no way to take a value proposition and wave a magic wand and say, boom, now I have an elevator pitch. It just doesn't work like that. It's hard to do, and having writing skills is definitely an advantage.
Does the value proposition change with each target company?
Yeah, this is a question that comes up, Ken, quite a bit at the end of this presentation. There are people who are not necessarily clear on one particular target market. And then they have to face a difficult choice. They have to decide whether they want to stick with one value proposition and go after one target, or try to segment themselves. And when you segment yourself, you run the risk of being, if other people notice your dueling value propositions, they don't know which one to believe. So it's a tough spot to be in. Value propositions are primarily for people who are very sure about their target market. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Chip, in addition to the gobbledygook and jargon that you'd like us to remove from our vocabulary, is there anything else that just drives you crazy when you're dealing with people that are looking for work and having them try to develop their value proposition?
I think the biggest and most frustrating thing is, I'll use Alex as an example, but I'm not saying that he drove me crazy, so don't connect the two. but Alex went through a period of struggling to learn the art of getting inside the other person's mind. But after some coaching, and after Alex did a substantial amount of legwork, he was able to get the concept down, and he knew what kinds of questions to ask people in order to find out what they were thinking and what they were wanting. So that's the biggest frustration level, Joey. That's probably the hardest part of doing this.
Great, thanks.
It's just second nature for us to stay in our own skin. It's fourth or fifth nature to jump out of it and get into somebody else's.
I will tell you that your concept of trying to tell people about how you save time and money, or I like to say reduce effort, is, I think, helps hone down your message. If you can do that, I think most hiring managers can relate to those concepts. And I think you're right. I think you're right, because otherwise you're just talking to the ether and you're not getting their attention, right?
Yeah.
How can you save them time and money? Where have you done that before? And as you're saying that, I'm guessing they're thinking to themselves, well, if you've done that over there, you could probably do it over here.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
I would have to agree. Yeah.
I want to add something that I learned actually from Chip. And it's so meaningful and it's so impactful, and it's something that I think about every so often. As you guys know, my work is with other people, helping them with the interview process. And I work with people from all over the world, or they were not born in America, in the Far East as an example. And I find them shy and not willing to talk a lot about themselves. And I tell them, you know what, when you are in Rome, you have to behave like Romans. You have to be able to talk a little bit about yourself, sell about the skills that you have and the accomplishment that you have. That's on one hand of the spectrum. On the other end of the spectrum are many people in America, it's almost accustomed, it's okay to brag about yourself. And now I'm going to share you something that I heard from Chip, and I love quoting him, and I will never forget that. This is what Chip said. Alex, let me tell you something about Americans. If you brag, you stink, and people move away from you. Chip, you remember when you told me that sentence?
I honestly don't, but if you said that I said it, then I must have said it.
Yeah, absolutely. So talking a little bit about yourself is fine, but when it crosses that line and it's blatant bragging, you'll notice a listener will move back. They don't like that. So find the proper ratio. How much can you talk, and in what language can you talk about yourself? So you accentuate your accomplishments, but don't put it like, I, because the listener doesn't like it. So be sensitive to that. That's my point.
Yeah.
And this is Linda Trignano. I want to kind of add a little bit to that, because a lot of my clients are women, and I have a background in corporate interviewing, and I know there's a big difference between men and women when they interview or when they talk about themselves. So when I hear what you're saying, Alex, and believe me, I'm not for bragging, but I often think that women need this extra boost to not only put their message in the format that you have given, Chip, but also to be given this extra encouragement to be able to speak up. I often find women do not speak in the terms of I do this, I do that. And I have to encourage them to say, what was your part? Let's put that into some terms that a hiring manager can relate to. So I just want to throw that in there. You know, Chip, I think your information has been extremely valuable.
Yeah.
But there's this other piece underneath that needs to be told. And that is the women who don't want to speak about themselves. And some men fall in that category. I don't mean to be exclusive here, but we're far from bragging in a lot of cases.
Thanks for your comments, Linda.
Now, if you had to rate the top 1 or 2 qualities to include in a value proposition, what would they be? Or is there a universal way to go about it?
1 or 2 qualities of a value proposition.
Yes.
I couldn't get it down to 1 or 2. I can only get it down to 4.
Okay.
Clarity, credibility, appeal, and exclusivity. As a matter of fact, I think if you only hit 2 of the 4, you might as well not even bother. You're just not hitting the mark. It's very hard to do this. It takes a lot of effort to put a really good, solid value proposition together. Alex and I spent, I would say, the better part of 2 months putting his together before we really had it nailed down.
And if I may add, the 4th part, which is exclusivity, that was for me the most difficult part. I remember being in Chip's office and he said, Alex, what's special about you? What are unique? My answer was nothing. No, Alex, what are unique? What's unique about you? Nothing, Chip, nothing. No, Alex, you're not going to leave my office until you start telling me what's unique about it. And then I started thinking, well, that line item developed into an 18-bullet Word document, which, by the way, I posted it on my LinkedIn profile, and the document is called What's Special About Me, What's Unique About Me, and so forth. Traditionally, if you approach a person and say, oh, what's special about you? Most people say, oh, nothing. Until you really push them, and then they come up with something. Oh, yeah, but is that unique? Yes, it is unique. Put it down.
And if you have trouble coming up with that list, there are plenty of people around you who know you and care about you and have seen you personally and professionally, who could rattle off a whole page worth of these traits and qualities that you're either oblivious to or oblivious to, and you don't want to brag about. But there are people around you who see you in a different light, and just ask them for 5 traits. You'll come up with a big list.
Yeah.
You know, years ago, I used to coach a youth group, and I gave them the assignment one time, take out a paper and write a list of all the good things about you. What, in essence, makes you unique? And they went like this. We're talking 12, 13-year-old kids, boys and girls. And then I said, okay, let's try a little bit different. Write a list of what things are not so good about you. They couldn't write quick enough. I was stunned by the disparity between what they were doing. And I think many times for adults that carries over.
When my boys would have birthday parties when they were younger, like Lynn, like these 12 and 13-year-olds, I used to have a box with a slit and index cards and pens. And I used to ask people, what do you like about whichever kid, right? And people would write it on a card and put it in the box. And then at the end of the party, I would collect them all and give them to my kid. And they were just like astonished by the things that people were writing. And it was such a great exercise for them as well as me, because I was learning about things about my kids that I was picking up from their friends. So it was great. It's a great exercise.
We don't really see ourselves as we are.
No, we don't.
Think about it from a corporate standpoint. How many times when you get a review, do you expect it to be always bad and never positive, and you dread them? And I can't tell you the number of times that I would get contacted about doing a great job, probably once or twice in all the years. You know, it's the idea that you keep getting beaten down about little things, so you develop that mindset. And I think that has a lot to do with it.
Meetings will continue till morale improves.
You know, Ken, I think you're a great example, because I think I often hear you reflect that you are surprised that you're making such an impact, that you're an introvert and you're still making this impact. I think you're a great example to job seekers, because I think that it really serves as an example of what one could do or what is inside of us that others see. So I really think that not only are you doing a good job, but you're a great example.
And I didn't pay her to do that, by the way.
Yeah.
Anyone else? I just think you have to have a positive mindset. I mean, it is so hard, and you can't let certain things get you down, and you will have value propositions. You will have something about you. Don't know who said it, but luck is the residue of hard work, and that's absolutely true. You make your own luck. You can improve your chances, for sure. But I mean, I do, and I say this genuinely, I appreciate everyone who attends these calls, because not for me, believe me, but I just think it's so much, it's great that everyone can kind of talk it through and listen to things. And I appreciate the time that everyone gives. I mean, and that's the whole thing. It's like, we all appreciate each other, and you just have to say it sometimes with whatever you do. I think one of the things I posted about is the best gift you can give now is the gift of knowledge. You all have knowledge. Give that knowledge and share that knowledge. Just because you're maybe in transition, you still have the skills. You're not defined by your job title. You're defined by what you can do.
I just want to add one more thing. Now the chip is here, I'm inspired. Every client of mine goes through this question. I'm asking them, so what's unique about you, but you're not allowed to brag or to talk about work? And that kind of stabs them. And most people say, nothing. And I remember in one situation, an individual, a financial executive, said nothing. Okay, so I moved on to the next question. And then a part of his story was, oh, Alex, you know, Christmas time, I drove home with my son. And Alex, you wouldn't believe, it was very icy in front of my eyes. The car in front of me just put on the brakes, and he was sliding with a nose into this river. He said, I stopped my car, I jumped into that icy water, I opened the door, I grabbed the individual out, I actually saved his life. And Alex, you wouldn't believe it, 2 weeks later, the chief of police and the mayor make a big party at the municipality. They declare me a hero of town. They give me a plaque. I don't think that I am a hero, but I said, Herb, this is special. This is unique about you. So I said, okay, how can I use this? I said, sprinkle this sort of information throughout the interview. Your biggest enemy in the interview is if they interview 5, 6, 7 people, and at the end of the period, they don't remember you because you said nothing that stands out, you're wasting your time. This way they can say, oh, that's the guy that jumped into the river and saved somebody's life. Use that specialty about you, but remember, don't talk about work and don't brag.
You can brag, Alex. We'll let you.
No, I don't.
I mean, you're kind of where you got me where I am right now, actually, to some extent. I'm not sure if you realize that, but it's true. But enough about me. Have a great day, everyone. I'm going to be stopping the recording now. Look forward to seeing you soon.